The first thing my manager said was, "Can you tell me who checked into room 22?" And when I pulled up the reservation system, the room was occupied, but there was no guest attached to it. Not a blank field, not corrupted data. The room showed as occupied for 6 nights. Housekeeping had logged service twice. Minibar charges were posted. Keycards had been issued, but where the guest name should have been, there was nothing. I remember staring at it because software doesn't usually fail in such a specific way. Either the room exists or it doesn't. Either a guest exists or they don't. "Probably a sync issue," I said. My manager shrugged. "Figure it out before checkout." I worked night audit at a hotel outside Pittsburgh. Nothing glamorous, mostly spreadsheets, billing corrections, and listening to drunk wedding guests argue with vending machines at 2 in the morning. Room 22 should have been easy to solve. It wasn't. The first weird thing was the key cards. I checked the system logs. 3 cards had been encoded for room 22 4 days earlier. The employee ID attached to the encoding belonged to a woman named Marcy. She'd worked there for 12 years. I asked her during shift change, "Do you remember checking in someone for 22? She was pouring coffee. She stopped halfway through. Just for a second. "No. You issued keys." "Did I?" "System says you did." She looked at me strangely. Not nervous, more like disappointed. "Then I guess I did." "Who was it?" She stirred her coffee without drinking it. "I don't remember." Then she walked away. Most employees remember unusual guests. This wasn't even an old stay. It was current. The room was occupied right then. Around midnight, I went upstairs. Room 22 sat near the end of the second-floor hallway. Nothing special about it. The Do Not Disturb sign hung on the handle. I was about to leave when the door opened. A man stepped out carrying an ice bucket. Maybe late 50s. Gray jacket, wire-rimmed glasses, completely ordinary. He looked like somebody's accountant. "Evening," he said. "Sorry to bother you," I replied. "Quick question. Could I verify the name on the reservation?" He smiled politely. "No reservation. Sorry, I don't have one." Then he walked toward the ice machine. I expected confusion, maybe irritation. Instead, he sounded completely matter-of-fact, like he'd answered the question 100 times. When I returned downstairs, I checked payment records. Every occupied room has billing information somewhere: credit card authorization, cash deposit, corporate account. Room 22 had none. Yet minibar charges kept posting successfully. Housekeeping entries existed. Maintenance had replaced a lamp 2 days earlier. The room interacted with every hotel system, except the ones that identified who was staying there. The next day I dug deeper. I pulled archived reports. Room 22 had a strange history. 3 years earlier, same issue. Occupied room, no registered guest. 2 years earlier, again. 8 years earlier, 11 years earlier. The room appeared throughout records like a fingerprint smudged, just enough to avoid identification. Every time, information vanished selectively. Not everything, just the parts connecting occupancy to a person. I brought it to my manager. He skimmed the paperwork and pushed it back. "Drop it." "What?" "Just leave it alone. There's literally someone staying there." "Then let him stay there." "Who is he?" My manager rubbed his eyes. "You're making this bigger than it is. I'm trying to figure out why there's no record." He looked toward the hallway leading to administration offices. "Trust me. Stop looking." That response bothered me more than the missing records. People get annoyed when they're busy. They don't usually get tired. He sounded tired, like we'd had the conversation before. A few nights later, I tried checking security footage. I wasn't looking for ghosts or anything ridiculous. I wanted timestamps, entry records. The man had to appear somewhere. Cameras covered every entrance. I reviewed 6 days. Guests rolled luggage through the lobby. Families arrived. Delivery drivers came and went. Room 22's guest never appeared, not once. I assumed I'd missed him. Then I reviewed footage from the exact timestamp when Marcy encoded the keycards. She walked to the front desk terminal, typed something, encoded 3 cards, handed them across the counter. 2. Nobody. Her arm extended toward empty air. Then she nodded as if listening to someone. The footage wasn't corrupted. Other people moved normally in frame. A bellhop crossed behind her carrying luggage. The timestamp remained consistent. It looked exactly like someone serving an invisible guest. I called Marcy immediately after her shift. I saw the footage. Silence. Okay, there's nobody there. More silence. Then she said, "Delete it." What? Delete the footage? Why? Just delete it. Marcy, who was staying in room 22. She hung up. By then I was obsessed. Not scared, just irritated. Every answer created a bigger question. I started checking physical records, old storage room, filing cabinets, boxes of reservation logs from before everything became digital. It took hours. Around 3 in the morning I found something interesting. A folder labeled Room 22. Inside were dozens of sheets with sections cut out, not torn. Removed carefully with scissors. Names missing. Signatures missing. Addresses missing. Entire guest profiles excised while surrounding paperwork remained intact. Someone had spent years physically editing records. Different handwriting appeared throughout the folder. Different ink colors. Different decades. One note sat loose between pages. It wasn't official paperwork, just notebook paper folded twice. It read, "If you're trying to identify him, stop. You're asking the wrong question. The question isn't who he is. It's why everyone eventually helps him disappear." No signature, no explanation. I showed it to nobody. I kept it in my pocket. That same night, housekeeping supervisor Denise caught me leaving the storage room. "You found the folder." It wasn't a question. "You know about it. Everybody who's been here long enough knows." "Then explain it." She looked genuinely sad. "I can't. Can't or won't." "Both. Is the guy dangerous?" She hesitated. "No." "Criminal?" "No." "Then what's happening?" Denise stared down the hallway for a few seconds. "You wish you'd left it alone." Then she walked off. Not dramatically, not mysterious, just exhausted, like she'd reached the end of an argument years earlier. The following evening, I went directly to room 22 and knocked. The man opened immediately. "Come in," he said before I spoke. The room looked normal. Suitcase by the dresser, open book on the bed, half-finished coffee. Nothing hidden, nothing strange. "You know why I'm here?" I asked. "Because there's no record of me." "Why is there no record?" He gestured toward a chair. "Sit." I stayed standing. "I'd rather talk." "Fair enough." He seemed amused by that. Not mocking, patient. "Did you remove the records?" I asked. "No." "Then who did?" "Employees." "Why? You should ask them. They won't answer." He nodded slowly. "That's probably wise." The conversation went nowhere. Every answer circled back on itself. Yet something about him irritated me. He wasn't evasive. He wasn't lying. He simply behaved like the explanation was obvious. Eventually I left. As I reached the door, he said, "How old were you when you realized your brother wasn't the favorite?" I stopped. My older brother and I barely spoke anymore. Nobody at work knew anything about him. "What?" The man looked back at his book. "Never mind." I left without responding. That question stayed with me. Not because it was accurate, because it was precise. Over the next week I found more notes, hidden in old maintenance binders, inside payroll folders, taped beneath desk drawers. Different authors, same pattern. Former employees describing conversations with the room 22 guest. None explained what he knew. None wrote the secret directly. Instead, they described reactions. One note read, "He told me something I already knew, but spent 20 years avoiding." Another said, "Afterward I couldn't look at my wife the same way. Not because he lied, because he was right." Another, "I understand why people remove the records." Some things spread when spoken aloud. Every note ended similarly. "Keep him here. Erase the trail. Don't let curiosity bring more people." There were dozens, maybe hundreds, written across 30 years. Different handwriting, different ages, same conclusion. I began noticing odd behavior among long-term staff. Whenever room 22 came up, conversations ended. Paperwork disappeared from desks. Once I printed occupancy reports and left them beside my computer. 10 minutes later, the page listing room 22 was gone. Only that page, nothing else. Another time I found Marcy feeding old documents into a shredder. She looked embarrassed when she saw me. "How many people know?" I asked. "Enough." Enough for what? She didn't answer. She just kept feeding paper into the machine. The guest remained there another week. Nobody charged him. Nobody checked him out. Somehow housekeeping still cleaned the room. Towels appeared. Trash vanished. Meals occasionally arrived. The hotel functioned around him like water flowing around a stone. Then, one night, I found the oldest note. It was hidden inside a ledger from the late 1980s. Yellow paper, barely legible, written by someone named Walter. Maybe a former manager. The note was longer than the others. Walter described meeting the guest in room 22 and learning something devastating about himself. Not supernatural, not prophetic, personal. He never recorded what it was. Only the aftermath. He wrote that he spent 3 days verifying it and discovered the guest had been correct. Every detail. Walter then spent years ensuring room 22 remained occupied yet undocumented. His final paragraph said, "If you're reading this, you've already gotten too close. The danger isn't him. The danger is wanting to know what he sees. Once that happens, you'll start protecting him too." I hated that note. It felt manipulative. Like a cult recruitment pamphlet disguised as a warning. So I decided to confront the man one final time. I brought every note, every copied report, every piece of evidence. He listened quietly while I dumped everything onto the table. "People have been covering for you for decades." He nodded. "Seems that way. Why? You'll have to ask them. I am asking you." For the first time, he looked genuinely uncomfortable. "Because they made a choice." "After what?" He sighed. "Conversation." "That's it?" "That's it." I sat across from him. "Tell me what you told them." He studied me for a long moment. Then he smiled sadly. "No." "Why not?" "Because you're still deciding whether to leave." I remember getting angry. Weeks of missing records, missing footage, missing answers. "You think you're some kind of therapist?" He laughed. "God, no." "Then what are you?" "Just a man people keep talking to." The room stayed quiet. Finally, I asked the question that mattered. "Did you ask them to erase the records?" "Never." "Did you tell them to hide you?" "No." "Then why did they?" He looked genuinely puzzled. "Because they thought it was kind." That answer bothered me more than anything else. Kind to whom? Him, themselves, future guests. I left without another word. The next morning, I submitted my resignation. Not because I learned a secret. I never did. Not directly. But during those weeks, I'd started noticing things about my own life. Little observations, questions I avoided, regrets I'd buried under routine. The guest hadn't revealed them. He'd only pointed toward one with that comment about my brother. One sentence. That's all. After that, I couldn't stop examining everything else. Months later, after I'd left the hotel, a package arrived with no return address. Inside was a photocopy of a reservation log. Room 22. Occupied. No guest name. Attached was a handwritten note from Marcy. Just one line. He checked out yesterday. We thought you should know. That was 3 years ago. Last month I drove past the hotel during a road trip. I almost kept going. Instead, I stopped for coffee in the lobby. New employees worked the desk. New manager. New furniture. Everything looked different. Before leaving, I glanced at the occupancy board behind reception. Room 22 was occupied. I asked the clerk who was staying there. He checked the computer and frowned. Then he said exactly what my manager had said years earlier. "Can you tell me who checked into room 22? And the expression on his face made me realize something I still can't explain. It wasn't confusion. It was the look of someone who had just noticed a missing piece and hadn't yet decided whether to put it back.